Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. Edina Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services but dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. And this is Alan Miller with you as usual. We have some return guests. And the last time we had Dr. Chaunda Scott on here, she unfortunately didn't have a voice because her equipment was not working. We see that that's cleared up and we're looking forward to that. And of course, our regular and not only friend, but sponsor, Dr. Charles Crutchfield, and welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
The first thing we want to talk about is the wonderful book that's the result of research by the late Walter Scott, and which culminated in Minnesota's Black community in the 21st century, a terrific book which highlights the many, many contributions of the Black community in so many areas of Minnesota that it is really mind-boggling. And you go into all the different sections there. So Chaunda, why don't you tell us a little bit of the history, and then we'll talk about how Charles got involved, as he does in so many civic ventures, and we'll take it from there.
Well, we were really building this book off of my father's work, Walter Scott, who really focused on the Black community and what Black success looked like then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so we were really using those books as a template to, build our book, which was, a great template to have. And so we were able to do that. We got together. Charles, kind of reached out to me at my university in Michigan and asking me, was I Chaunda Scott, the daughter of Walter Scott? And I was like, yes. And so then we met with my brothers and Chris, and we got together and said that, we really need to form an organization to kind of spotlight more of what the African American community is doing in Minnesota, because we're really not being viewed very positively in the media. I mean, it's always, somebody's in jail, somebody got shot, somebody stole a car. It's never anything about, somebody is the president of the company, somebody is getting a degree in medicine, or so, we felt that since it's not being done, it was up to us to change that narrative and begin having programming, books, and documentaries that can highlight that and add to the promising history of Blacks in Minnesota.
And certainly what they have accomplished. And it really goes across many areas. We have 10 sections of the book, which go into really everything from acting to medicine to the professions to law to teaching to the arts. It really is a panoply of the entire Black community here in Minnesota in the 21st century. And Charles, how did you hear about it, and what propelled you to get involved as you do in so many civic ventures?
Well, the book is so valuable, and there were several iterations, and I think The Beacon was probably the first issue, and that came out approximately 1960, but there were about 3 different versions of the book. And there was one around 1970 and another one around 1980, but these were such valuable historical reference books in the Twin Cities. And I'm not sure that's exactly what he designed to do, as opposed to a showcase of the different, of all the different involvements that Blacks had in Minnesota. But my grandmother was the first Black school teacher in Minnesota, and she was in one of the original books. My parents were in the book. So most Black families in the Twin Cities had these books, and they were so important and so valuable. And you would look through them and you'd see every page, you see somebody that you knew. There was a friend of the family or somebody you had gone to, that was your dentist, or this was the person you saw when you took a tour of the Star and Tribune newspaper. And since the last one was published in 1980, my brother and I were looking at it, talking about what a wonderful reference book this was. Perhaps it's time to do another one, because it had been almost 30 years. And so in one of the books, they had a picture of all the staff, and there was a picture of somebody by the name of Chaunda Scott. And I thought, hey, in this day and age with internet, let me plug this word into Google and see what happens. And I found a professor, and I contacted her. I said, are you Walter's daughter? And she said, absolutely. And so we decided to meet and talk about coming out with a new edition of the book. And that's how things started on our end. And the Scott family has just been wonderful and a wealth of knowledge. And once again, I am absolutely just amazed at what Walter did without computers. He put all these books together in a time when there were no word processors, there's no computers. And as Chaunda told me, their house was kind of like a computer. You'd walk in and you have things laid out all over the living room floor and the kitchen floor and the dining room floor. And he was always working on these books, but it's amazing how valuable they are to this day as far as the history of Blacks in Minnesota.
And the book is entitled Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century. It is available through Barnes & Noble. It is available on Amazon. It is available from any of your favorite booksellers. And if you contact this program, we can put you in touch with people who can make sure that you get a copy, because it is just a wonderful, wonderful document. And I can't speak enough of how it is eye-opening as to the accomplishments and the contributions of so many people in so many areas in terms of the Black community of Minnesota, which was unknown. I mean, when we moved here 23, 24 years ago, we were told that we were moving into a 95%, 96% white community. And the fact of the matter is that wasn't true then, and it certainly isn't true now. And as Chaunda said, so many accomplishments are unknown that it's really important for people historically to have a view of all this. And Chaunda, what do you think of the result?
Oh, I think it's excellent. I mean, given that, we all were pretty novice at doing this type of work. I know Charles does a lot of medical writing and I do a lot of educational writing, but it was a little different, but it was easier because we had a template. So, and I thought it was great because we had a chance to go around and meet people, take pictures, write their bios. I mean, this was just our first project. I mean, we didn't get everybody in it, but hopefully now that we're more known to the public because we're relatively new and have been around since 2016, I think people will be more willing to support our efforts and our mission.
And as the book has now rolled out also, not only is that true, but certainly its availability, it's also available in several libraries I am aware of here in Minnesota for people who are not prepared to buy it, but really want to increase their education as to the historical aspect of it. And Charles was very active in bringing this together with his brother Chris as well, who is now, by the way, a guest host on Access to Democracy, we are happy to say. So that it really is sort of a project that has come full circle. Charles, what could you add to that?
Yes, and one of the things that Sean and I have talked about is how important it is to have access to this book to all people. And so one of the projects we're currently working on is designing and working up a grant to provide books to all the libraries in the state of Minnesota. So if you know, if anybody knows of a library that would like a copy, please let us know, and we can get them on the list. So when the grant comes through, we can make sure that all the libraries have a copy of this wonderful book.
Well, that's terrific. And you were involved in so many charitable ventures, including the Crutchfield Foundation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that's involved? Because I know it has a lot to do with education, and Chaunda is an educator, and certainly you are in your own right.
Yes, and the Crutchfield Foundation, along with the Scott family, that's one of the things we're working on is, like I said, funding to make sure that all the libraries and public schools in Minnesota have access to this book. The other thing that the Crutchfield Foundation has done is we're supporting different educational endeavors. One, in fact, is the High School for Recording Arts, which is a high school for at-risk youth based in St. Paul. The chancellor is David Ellis, and I believe he's been on the show in the past. But it's a wonderful program that takes youth that are at risk and pulls them back into the school system and allows them to graduate with their high school degree. So we've been big sponsors of that, providing scholarships for students. Also, we have a small, interesting passion for Negro League, Major League Baseball. And I'm so happy to announce that about 3 weeks ago, the National Baseball, Major League Baseball has now accepted all of the records for the Negro National League Baseball teams. And so it's a combined effort. And so we've also provided scholarships to keep the memories of the players alive. They were great players, but they were not that well known. And so for students that are writing essays about the conditions and times and players, we're also supporting that through our educational endeavors.
And those players are now eligible for the Hall of Fame. And
right.
None of them ever were in the Hall of Fame. And speaking of baseball, Charles has been on his own, well, I don't know what to call it, but with the Minnesota Twins, his own crusade to get them to be more, shall we say,
it's image appropriate.
Image appropriate. And I'm holding up the change that you have suggested to the Twins logo, which I know they're under scrutinizing.
Yes,
as we talk, and I'll pass that back. Thank you.
Yeah, we thought it's so important. As I'm also a member of the Minnesota Association of Black Physicians, and one of the things that we came through on a position statement was that visual images can also affect racial feelings and identity. And so we're all in favor of images that promote equality and recognize the contributions of all people. And so we figured with a logo like the Twins, if you have two players, they need to have the players look like both the fans that are attending the games and also the players that are on the field. So it was just a gentle, friendly push. And we know that the Twins it's a great organization. It's under review right now. And we know in the long term, the Twins will do the right thing.
Absolutely. And, talking of education has been so important in the Black community, not only education and teaching. Here we have Chaunda, we have her brother, Anthony, we have you, we have your brother, Chris, we have your daughter who's studying in NYU, I believe, at the moment. And I don't know overall any community which has accepted education as a way to better America than the Black community, certainly here in Minnesota. And, talking about that, we have endured this week something I had hoped I would never see in my lifetime. And that was an attack on our capital, the People's House, by really vicious, uh, anti, really anti-democracy, I believe fascists. And I would like to get your reaction as I sat open mouthed and looked at the wanton destruction and the callousness and the cruelty of these individuals. It was beyond my comprehension. So I don't know when you first became aware of it, Chaunda, and what your initial reaction was, but let's talk to that.
Well, I was working on the computer and I had the TV on, and I kind of saw it going on. I was like, yeah, this is a weird TV show, because it was just a lot of background stuff going on. So then I kept seeing the flash of the news coming on. So I got off the computer, and I mean, I was just appalled. And I guess my thinking as a workforce diversity expert and a social justice advocate, just months ago they had, the Black Lives Matter marching down in Washington. And so when they were marching down in Washington, they had the National Guard and they were doing tear gas and, arresting people and so forth. But when this was happening right at the nation's capital, I mean, you had the police officers taking pictures with the people. I mean, the treatment is not the same. So, it's not enough just to achieve diversity and included. I don't want to be included if I'm not going to be treated right. So, I just think this was just awful. I'm embarrassed that other countries and other citizens are viewing this from being attacked by Americans in America is just appalling.
I never thought I would see something like I saw. You talk about Black Lives Matter in Washington, which was a peaceful demonstration, which ended up with a lot of police force and a lot of problem. But I think of the fact that the president wanted a photo op in the park at a church across from the White House. And he walked over there, and peaceful protesters who were in that park were tear gassed and were forced out so that the president could hold up a Bible. He couldn't even hold it up correctly, which doesn't surprise me. My views about the president have long been established. And there were helicopters overhead for these people who were doing nothing but expressing the First Amendment. What we had in Washington this week was just the opposite. It was sedition. I think it was treasonous. And Charles, how did you come aware to it? And what was your reaction?
Well, the same thing. I came home from work slightly early, and my wife said, "You're not going to believe what's going on." I had said, "Hey, is there anything on TV about the election in Georgia? The Democrats are about to take over the Senate." And she said, "No, there's nothing on about that. There's other things. They're attacking the Capitol. They're attacking Congress." I said, "What?" And just like Chaunda said, I thought this is just a bizarre thing. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, the same thing she thought. This is a completely different treatment of people than they had when the Black Lives Matter was here, where they're shooting people with rubber bullets and tear gas. These people are just walking in unfettered. The police are moving the barriers so they can come in, let alone taking selfies. And I just thought this is a completely different situation. And I realized this is a terrorist attack on a joint session of Congress led by the president of the United States, who's completely narcissistic. He's an egomaniac, and he's totally incompetent. He's in way over his head, and he's leading this type of terrorist attack against our people. I was heartbroken.
And not only heartbroken, but and you mentioned so many of his qualities. I can't talk about the misogyny. I can't talk about the lying. it's up to 30,000 lies, I think now, according to the Washington Post. I can't believe, and of course he never had a majority. He didn't have a majority vote the first time around. And certainly his political career, fortunately, is finished with this the second time around. But the lies that have spewed about the election have just been unbelievable. And then he stoked this crowd up and he said, we're going to march and I'm going to lead you marching to the Capitol, etc. At which point he got back into his limousine with the Secret Service and went back to the White House to watch what he had wrought. And what he had wrought was just beyond belief. There are now 5 people dead, including a Capitol policeman who fought this mob. Some of the Capitol policemen, I think, have to be really investigated because of their complicity, as Charles mentioned. And even though on social, really IT commentary, there have been weeks of warning about this, they have been ignored. And of course, people were stoked up. They were stoked up by Senator Hawley, a new senator from Missouri, and by Senator Cruz, a senator from Texas, among others. And I sent a letter 7 days ago to Senator Hawley before all of this happened, chastising him for really what he is doing here in spewing lies and being disrespectful and urging on violence. And I'm so pleased that I had the foresight to send it a week ago before all this happened. Now, yesterday, a crowd went to his house, a peaceful crowd of constitutionalists, and he immediately said that he was attacked by and threatened by Antifa, the anti-fascists, and they weren't even involved in this. This is the man who held up his arm in support of the insurrection. And fortunately, these people took a 50-minute video of the entire episode at his house where they were calling upon him to disclaim some of his lies. And he just went with more lies, but they have the video now to show that it was a peaceful demonstration. The only thing close to anything even happening on his property was the fact that they put a copy of the Constitution at his front door. This man is unfit for office. A new senator, obviously with ambition for the future, but I think his future was sealed by his own conduct here. Your thoughts, either of you?
Well, I just, I just was really kind of bothered by the way it was reported. I know on one of the local channels here, one of the news reporters was at the airport and he was, leaving Washington, and he happened to be talking to somebody who was one of the protesters that broke into the White House, and he's interviewing the person. I'm like, why isn't he being arrested? Why isn't he calling to have him arrested? So, I guess I just have a real lack of trust in the legal system, because it just seems like, things are happening to some people and others, negative things are happening. They're getting killed, they're getting shot, while other people are breaking in and just walking away, going back to their home. So I just have a problem with this.
I think we may have a new day coming with a new administration here, with an attorney general who should be on the Supreme Court, but I think is going to do an excellent job as attorney general, with an entirely new attitude. And probably neither of you are aware of the fact that the man who sat with his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, which is in an area of the Capitol that these people had to know in advance where to go, and went through and rifled some of her papers, was arrested earlier today and is being held. And that's maybe the first of many Charles, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was it was extremely frustrating and angering, and it reminded me about the old movie The Wizard of Oz. You know, these lies from the president, like you said, 30,000 plus, they just keep going. And every day is so terrible, you forget what happened the day before. We're talking about the terrorist attack on the government. The day before, he's calling and illegally pressuring different officials to change the vote and overturn the will of the people in other states that voted. So it never ends. It's kind of like the wizard. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. They're trying to distract you. All this, it's not the Trump supporters, Antifa and things like that. It's crazy. So, but like you said, a new day is coming, and I love this selection for the cabinet. Even though he should be on the Supreme Court, they should have given him a hearing, et cetera, et cetera. I'm happy that things are changing. They can't change soon enough.
And I think that goes for all of us across the board. I think it's also interesting in the last day to see how many people have defected from the administration. And you know, the old adage about rats leaving the sinking ship, it certainly is the first thing that was called to my mind. All of these people saying, oh, we tolerated 4 years of this absolutely impermissible conduct, unpresidential, un-American, inhuman in many ways. And now all of a sudden we have been pushed too far. Well, I'm glad you have been pushed too far, but I think you have to set back and review your actions over the last 4 years as to how you condone this. And there are still many. There's 2 members of Congress from Minnesota who still were part of that group that wanted to set aside the election. And you know, that in and of itself is frightening.
Well, I'm glad we will remember who they are. And as I've had discussions with my friends, and I'm confident now, he will go down as the worst president in the history of the United States.
One of the worst leaders in the history of the world. And he will go down in terms of the dictators and the fascists and the leaders who destroyed, you know, their communities and their countries. And in any event, we only have a couple of minutes left. So I'm glad I had this opportunity to share these thoughts with you at this really what was tragic times and perhaps leading us to better times. But let's talk again about the book, Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century. Chaunda was one of the authors, and say a few more words about the book while we have still a few seconds left.
A couple of things. The book has been nominated for 2 book awards this year, one from the Minnesota Historical Society and one from the Academy of Human Resource Development. So that's pretty exciting for us to know that our work has been nominated.
And Charles, your thoughts.
Very deservedly so. And the other thing too, it's an ongoing work. And so as new people emerge and new businesses emerge, we're going to keep it active on the website, and we'll have rolling new entries, and eventually that'll make the next book when that comes out in 5 to 10 years. Also, the previous 3 books have been compiled into one book for historic value. So I would encourage everyone, if you're going to get the new book, and you absolutely should, also look at getting the compilation of the other 3 that are 3-in-1 to complete the edition.
And again, it's Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century. Chaunda Scott, who has fled Minnesota for warmer grounds, Dr. Charles Crutchfield, a friend, a sponsor, and the brother of guest host Chris Crutchfield on Access to Democracy. I just want to thank you both so much for this and for sharing your thoughts about the book and about the tragedy that we underwent in this country this week. Alan Miller signing off for Access to Democracy, and we look forward to seeing you down the road.